We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. All right, Megan, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to hear about you.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Everybody's like, what is that? So you are an intuitive, a dream analyst, and a mystic, right?
Yes.
And so you're going to tell us more about that. And then, like I just said, we've got some questions that'll probably really clarify a lot of what it is you do and how you do it and how it helps. So why don't you tell us about yourself first?
Yes. Okay. So when I was a child, I was really fascinated by dreams, as well as everything that was mystical and unseen and mysterious. And I had recurring nightmares as well as recurring wonderful flying dreams. And I wanted to know what they were and why we spent so much time there, what it was all about. And so I used to look up in dream dictionaries, trying to go from A to Z and figure out what each thing was. And they didn't really explain it enough to me. And I kept searching and I kept studying different philosophies and different theories and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, I realized that it was much wider than that, that there was a lot more to the subconscious and just to the dream world itself that I didn't feel was being discussed. So eventually I became quite ill as an adult and was diagnosed with three or four chronic illnesses at once, and ended up doing a lot of self work to recover from that. And part of my healing journey was meditating on a regular basis. And when I started doing that, it really reopened that world of my intuition and my subconscious. And I started paying attention to my dreams again. And when I started doing that, I realized that there was all this guidance in there that I was receiving, and that I was really being called to help other women really on their journeys, on their healing journeys, to use dreams as that catalyst for personal growth.
Interesting. You know, I was really interested, excuse me, when you reached out to me about this, because I don't have a lot of dreams. And for a while I wasn't dreaming. I know part of it probably was because I wasn't getting good sleep because I was in pain. But there are probably a handful of dreams that I have had that are significant in that they're really detailed. I could give you like not just detailed description, but color, everything. And I know they have meaning. And I know I think I interpreted one of them, but is that what makes those dreams stand out? The ones that, the ones that have significance? Because we dream, that's part of what our brain does to kind of heal, right? But it's also when you get those really detailed dreams, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, the more you can remember of the dream, the better, because it is all in the details.
Right.
And the details taken as a whole, as a story. So not picking out the individual little parts and saying, well, I dreamed of a bicycle and what does bicycle mean, and so on and so forth, but really looking at all the details, but looking at them through your lens, because your lens as a dreamer is going to be unique to you. And if I have a bicycle dream and you have a bicycle dream, they're going to totally be different because our experience with bicycles has been different. So our personal associations and our life experience are what really create our dream lexicon or our dream language. And it's different for each person. So I find that it's really important to look at the dreams in a lot of detail, but then I also, as part of my method, ask a series of questions that draws out that personal association with those specific details to arrive at your personal meaning.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So this is really, really interesting. And I know dreams are big. And as a matter of fact, whenever I meet with my therapist and I do my EMDR, one of the first things out of her, one of the first questions is, have you had any dreams lately? She always includes that. And there hasn't been really not associated with what I'm working through on my EMDR. But yeah, but she always asks, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and not all therapists do. And of course, it has its basis in psychoanalysis with Freud and Jung, but not all counselors or therapists use it. And I feel that it's something that they could be using, as well as all light workers and energy healers and just anybody who's working in the spirit realm really would benefit from integrating dream work as part of their modality.
Okay, right. I guess I'm really fascinated with this. So where did the dreams come from? Your experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is it your subconscious trying to give you a message? Because I know
Yes.
what's also true, and correct me if I'm wrong, is in dreams, they're not always literal. Like what you're
Correct.
seeing isn't, oh, it usually means something else much deeper. And I've noticed sometimes I've had some of my dreams have been very, very disturbing, but I also know it's not really about that.
Exact thing. Yes.
It's something you have to find the meaning behind it, right?
Yes. And I very much take a metaphorical stance on dreams, if you will. So I unless they're visitation dreams or certain premonition ones, I really in general just say that dreams are stories and that the story is a metaphor for your waking life. And it's very much, in my opinion, the way literature formulates itself to teach a lesson or to shine a light on something
Yeah, so
or
say
to
bring awareness.
raise your awareness. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really interesting. Okay. So some of the questions you submitted, I thought are great, and I think it's going to really help us in this. Is what is the dream mirror method?
Yes. So that is the method that I developed that I use to help people decode their dreams. And it's 4 steps. It's memory, mood, mirror, and metaphor. And so memory is simply just getting into the habit of recording your dreams, keeping a dream journal, and making sure that you write down as much detail as you can possibly remember. Also, I like to have people give the dream a title as if it were a story. If it were a short story, it doesn't have to be a long title, just what is the main theme of the dream. And second is mood. And that's where, when you talk about vivid dreams, many times the ones that we remember the most are because they have that emotional resonance. And so I like to look at the emotions both before you went to sleep, during the dream, and then when you woke up, what was your emotional state? And those can all be different. The third step is mirror, and that's really where I act as a mirror to your subconscious, and we go through and decode it. Every little piece of the people, the places, the situations, the actions, the landscapes, the objects, the colors, the elements, everything that you can remember. Because I feel, paint that picture for me. It's very unique. And in that part, in that stage, I ask a whole bunch of different questions as we start to talk about those specifics. And then the fourth is really metaphor. And that's what we've been talking about. We look at how that everything that you've discovered in the mirror stage, added with the mood, added with what you called the dream, how that is a metaphor for your waking life.
So it's almost like it's another way of your subconscious kind of coming out, right?
Yes, exactly. It's really a way to draw that into the conscious.
Okay. This is fascinating. That's one thing I love about this podcast is I am finding so many different areas in the healing arena, in the trauma arena that you wouldn't even think of.
Yes.
And this is and it makes sense as because we didn't have this part of the conversation when we had our pre-meeting, our pre-interview. We just kind of talked, and I already liked what I was hearing, and I always like to kind of reserve it for the podcast because then I want to be surprised like this. And it's really, I find it fascinating. My mind is going because I'm sitting here thinking, this makes sense.
Yes.
And it's not talked about.
Correct. So it's really not a part of Western culture. We're not taught anything about it in school. We rarely talk about it in the family setting. It really cultivates a situation where we feel embarrassed about the dreams and confused by them, and a little bit not. We want to disassociate ourselves from them almost because we don't understand them. We don't get what they are about. We don't feel like we're controlling them in any way. And so we don't really know what to do with them. And we spend a large amount of our lives experiencing them. So to me,
and they have a profound effect on us, because I know some of my dreams. I mean, those ones that I was saying earlier that were so vivid, I could recall them. And the one that was really big happened 20 years ago. But I could tell you in great detail with the colors of everything. It's crazy. It's crazy. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. I wish I would have asked this question when I was a little girl. How do we overcome nightmares? Because I used to have horrible nightmares. My mom, I used to go running in the room and, can I sleep on the floor?
Oh, yes. So one of the ways that we can do that is through lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is where we're able to attain a state of lucidity inside a dream. In other words, realize that we're dreaming. And for some people, it happens spontaneously. For others, they have to will it, essentially. They have to have the intention to do it. But it can be through practice attained. And when you're able to attain it, then you can place yourself into a scenario that is a dream you've had before where you want to create an alternate ending. Or you find yourself in that recurring dream or that nightmare, and you realize you're dreaming and you change the ending. Both of those can give you that agency and that confidence and that really power back to yourself in that scenario, because it's a dream. So you feel like you're running from something, but if you turn around and actually face it and say, what am I running from? Sometimes the scene will immediately change. And all of a sudden there's your friend, and hey, and it completely changes the whole thing because it transmutes that energy. So it's a really powerful technique. And the other technique is visualization in your waking life. So this can be used a lot in therapeutic settings with children, for example, where you can't really get them to train to be lucid dreamers, but they have an upsetting dream, and basically through hypnosis or just putting them into a visualization state of that dream scenario again, and beforehand saying, well, how would you like this to be different? Would you like to make friends with the monster or whatever it is? And then have them enact that situation while they're in that waking state. But it's, when they're in visualization or meditation, they're still altering their brainwave state. So they're still going into possibly a sub theta state at that point. And that can really retrain and give a suggestion to your subconscious that, hey, there's another option here. And I have the agency to activate that option.
It's empowering, right?
Yes,
it's really
very much.
giving you the power back, right? Because as you're describing all this, I mean, as soon as I read the nightmare, I think about, the nightmares I had, and I had a lot of them when I was a kid, a lot. I don't think I slept real well. I learned how to wake myself up as soon as I realized I was like this. The second I realized I was in a nightmare, when I recognized it, I learned how to open my eyes
which is
and
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
and get myself out of that. But I couldn't go back to sleep right away because I would go right back into that dream. So I would have to stay up for a little bit and then go back to sleep. But see, I was running from it. There's fear. I didn't want to go back to sleep because I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
This is empowering because it's like when you feel someone chasing you, turn around and face them.
Right. And I do use that phrase, I call it dream empowerment, because I feel that the dream work in itself is an empowering technique.
That's a really vulnerable state, is when you're dreaming, when you think about it.
Yes.
It's a really vulnerable state. So that's really empowering. I never honestly even thought of that. I just, when I used to have nightmares, I wanted out of it
Right. And
and I
that,
didn't
I
want to
mean,
sleep.
yeah. And that gets you out of it for the time. But if it's a
Right.
recurring dream, it's going to come back.
And it did. It did. I don't
Yeah.
have them anymore. It's really rare that I have a nightmare anymore. And it's usually, and this sounds weird, but it's usually if I get too warm at night.
Yes. No, I agree. I mean, I have the same thing. So, our body is not separate in that way. There's been plenty of studies done in sleep labs where they introduce all different kinds of external stimuli to see if it influences the dream, and it does, and our biology does as well, and especially as women, when our hormones fluctuate, that
Yeah.
also affects our dreams. And when our estrogen is high, it actually allows our dream recall to be better.
That's interesting. And then food can also affect certain foods that you eat. If you eat in the evening, can also affect and cause a nightmare, from what I understand.
Because your body's busy doing
Right.
digestion, and it's same if you're in pain, right?
Right.
Or any of those things can definitely influence the content.
Right. Right. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. I wrote one down in here. Let's see. Why is dream work the ultimate self-care? Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
so we can put this in the toolbox of self-care.
Absolutely.
Ooh, I
Yes.
like that.
I feel it is, just because if you're gonna be seeking all these answers, you're trying to activate your intuition, you're trying to connect with your greater purpose, you're trying to figure out why you're here on earth, you're trying to take care of yourself and really cultivate your sense of wellness and mindfulness and all this stuff. Well, that is part of you. It's not outside of you. And it knows a lot more about you than your waking life you does.
True.
And so, why not create a more holistic awareness of
Mm-hmm.
our existence and our consciousness by pulling that into the waking life? I mean, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of naysayers that say, oh, the dreams are supposed to be hidden in this other world, and you're not supposed to bring them here because that's why we forget them. But I feel it's all part of our consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all part of our existence, and it has answers for us because it knows a lot more than we're letting on, right? 95% of our conscious is subconscious, 95% of our mind is subconscious, and only 5 is the conscious level. So there's so much of that iceberg that we just don't even know.
So true. Yeah, we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This comes back to me, and this is kind of interesting. So back when I had one of my surgeries on my shoulder or something, and I was in physical therapy, and I had a really good physical therapist, and um, he was saying, I was like, God, why is pain so much more at night? Is it because, you've been doing stuff all day? And he said the real reason why is because at night, your brain isn't busy being distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain, all of a sudden you're laying down and the TV isn't going, you're not talking, you're not distracted, you don't have all these distractions going on, so it can now focus on the pain.
Mm.
It's like, that's crazy.
Right.
Okay, so how can dreams be a catalyst for creativity? Ooh, I like that.
Oh, yes. So when we talk about lucid dreaming as well as dream manifestation or dream incubation,
Mm,
what we have the ability to do, again, with intent and dedication, is to have our dreams answer questions for us. So, mining our subconscious for creative use. as well as healing. And so myself, I'm a writer. And if I'm in the middle of writing something, my novel, and I can't figure out what is going to happen next, immerse yourself in that before you go to sleep. Ask questions of your subconscious when you go to sleep.
Like
And your
journal
dream.
it out, like write it
Yes,
out. Mm-hmm.
in your dream journal. And
Mm-hmm.
your mind will produce answers
Ooh.
to that. And they might not seem obvious on the, you might say, well, that's not what I asked for. That makes no sense. What is this, lizard doing in there? That has nothing to do with this. But when you start to decode the dream, you start to
Right.
analyze what the message is of the dream, then you might see that there actually is an answer in there. And so I feel that that's really one of the ways that I know it's one of the ways that so many famous inventors and painters and musicians and composers have come up with their amazing creative productions.
Doing this?
Yes, because
Seriously?
Einstein invented the theory of relativity in a dream. The typewriter was invented, sewing machine was invented in a dream. The movies, that we've all seen,
Sure, I could see that.
Inception is
Yeah.
about a dream. Twilight came from a dream, and the invention of the benzene molecule. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so
Wow.
many people. A famous golfer came up with a new swing. I don't know. There's just so many instances of it where people have said, well, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm going to leverage, my full consciousness to come up with a creative solution or a creative idea.
I didn't know that. I'm going to do that.
Yes, you should.
Mm, I like that. I like that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. That's really cool. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to have another journal now. Okay, got it. um, um, how can we improve dream recall? Because that's important.
Yes. And for a lot of people, it's the biggest hurdle. They
Yeah,
say, well,
yeah.
this sounds great, but what if I don't remember my dreams? And I hear
Mm-hmm.
that all the time. And I was actually really surprised when I started hearing that because
Yeah.
I remember almost all of mine every night. So I thought, what do you mean?
You're a
But
practicing dreamer though.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of my calling, right?
Yeah,
So I'm just like
yeah.
inundated. Like I can't write them all down. Um, One of the things that I tell people is to really start cultivating that sense of mindfulness. So start having a journal if you don't have one already. It doesn't have to be a dream journal yet. Just start journaling in the morning or before you're going to bed. And when you wake up in the morning, before you do anything else, be still
Mm-hmm.
and give a moment to what I call think backwards. So start thinking about where you just were, what you just were talking to somebody about. You were just trying to figure something out. You were just experiencing something. You were just looking at something. What was it? And you have to do this in your waking life all the time, but you don't think about what that mental process involves. So if you have a great idea and you're in the shower and then you get out and you forget it immediately, and
That's
then you
me.
have to try and remember what you were thinking about to
Mm-hmm.
get back to that train of thought. It's a lot like that. So you're basically saying, okay, what was that? What was it? And you're jogging your memory, right? But it's activating a different part of your brain because it was coming from that aspect of the dream. When you do that on a regular basis, you'll start to eventually get a little hit, just one little thing. Oh, I remember I was at the store. Okay. And then so you really concentrate on that, just concentrate on it as much as you can until the next piece reveals itself. Oh, that's right. Now I remember I saw my friend there. Okay. And you'll remember it backwards usually initially. And so sometimes you can just write the first thing you remember at the bottom of the page. And then as you remember it, write it up the page so that you have that chronological
Mm-hmm.
record.
I know, because I've gone through the day and then all of a sudden I'll realize, oh, and I'll remember I had a
You
dream
just
last
remembered a
night.
dream.
I
Yeah.
just remembered a dream and I'll remember like a part of it. Um, yeah, I had one a couple weeks ago. It was really disturbing. I don't even want to talk about it because it was so it's still when I think about it. And it was it was really weird because it was just for a split second. It was one quick scene. And then as soon as I realized what I was seeing, I got myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then I realized like later in the day, I remember I was doing something and all of a sudden it hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I still haven't figured out what that dream's about, but that one was rough, but it was, I don't know if it was just a nightmare or it had meaning to it. I don't
Right. And
know.
sometimes you will have that spontaneous memory in the middle of the
Right.
day. Or for me, I'll have a great idea first thing in the morning. I'll forget it as soon as I get out of the shower. Then when I go to bed at night, I'm like, oh my God, I just remember what I came up with this morning because you're back in that environment and you're not, busy with your day and everything. And so
Yeah.
you're getting ready to wind down, your brain's slowing down, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah. So it's interesting the way the brain works. And like you said, when there's a lot of noise, it's hard to retain that. We
Mm-hmm.
we forget 50% of our dream the first 5 minutes after we've been awake.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share? I mean, I was sitting here trying to think of some more questions and I'm so fascinated with it that like, tell us
yeah.
more, because I don't know a lot about dreams. I really
hmm
don't.
Well, one of the things that we haven't discussed, there's a couple things,
Yeah.
is okay, so what happens once you figure out what it's about? Right. And so we sit there, we go through it, we decode it. You say, oh yeah, okay, that's about this. Now what? So I have a process that I call dream integration, which is where we use different healing modalities to help you integrate the wisdom that you've acquired from the dream. And that can be journal prompts, affirmations, meditations. And I also like to use sound frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the solfeggio sound frequencies, because I feel those alter our energetic frequency and modify our vibration without us necessarily having to do anything, just by
Mm-hmm.
listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a program that I call the Women's Dream Empowerment Program. And in that program, over the course of 90 days, we go over half a dozen dreams, and then you pick half of those. And I actually create a custom meditation for you with a visualization of that dream, the affirmation of the alternate ending, overlaid with curated solfeggio frequency to what
Mm.
you're trying to achieve.
Ooh,
And then you listen to that, and it allows you to integrate both the wisdom that you've learned from the knowledge and do the healing piece at the same time.
interesting.
So that's one thing. The other thing is that I have a course that I offer called Women's Guide to Dream Decoding. And
Mm.
it's a 5-day audio course that allows you to learn the method and practice it. And it also has dream recall techniques in there and just other interesting things about to look for, to watch for, like wordplay that will happen sometimes in your dream. So you'll meet somebody or you'll see a sign and it'll say something and you'll think, huh, that's kind of weird. And then when you say it out loud, you go, oh, and you kind of get the
Meaning.
dual meaning,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of different things like that take place, that are mentioned in that course. And let's see what else. Lucid dreaming, of course, there's a lot of techniques for learning that as well. And really, also, a lot of people come to me to talk about visitation dreams.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
they
Yeah.
want to learn about really what does the spirit world have to do with the dream world, and are they one and the same, and are we actually being visited by loved ones, and can we go to other places, and what are all the possibilities there? And of course, science has its theories, but nothing's proven
Right.
about what's actually happening there. And that's why I call myself a mystic, because my take on what's happening in the dream world is from a very mystical perspective. And I feel that we have a lot of ability in that space to be our spirit selves as well as interact with other spirits, because I feel that we're spirit first, human second. And when we alter our brainwave state and we essentially leave our bodies and go somewhere else into the dream world, that we're not restrained to time and space. We're shifting realities. We're really experiencing altered states, right? And really are proven to be in a different brainwave state. And so what's possible in that realm from a metaphysical perspective is really what fascinates me and always has.
So when we have visitations, like I've had, oh, okay, let me tell you this one dream. And this was a reoccurring dream for me. It just hit me for years. I haven't had it in a long time. So I lost my mom when I was 16 to cancer. And my parents didn't tell me she was dying of cancer. I literally found out 3 days before she died from the doctor walking out of a room announcing that she's going to die. And they knew, unfortunately, so I'm giving you kind of the background, right? So they knew that she was dying, but they couldn't tell me is what it was. Okay. So you could imagine that alone was pretty traumatic, especially the way I found out she was going to die. So for years, I had this dream that it had been years since my mom died. And I just found out that she has been alive this whole time, but my dad had her in this hospital and keeping it secret so that, and so when she gets better, so that she could get better and then she could come out and be okay. And I would come into the dream where I realize, oh my gosh, I'm realizing this, like she's been alive this whole time. My dad hid her from me, and she's in a hospital bed and she's on the mend. It's going to take some time, but all I kept saying is, we've got so much to catch up on. Like it was like in my dream, it was like a 10-year span that she had been gone. And I kept having that dream over and over and over. And I would wake up distraught because it would feel so real at the time.
At the beginning, when you had it, was it an excited feeling like, oh, now,
Yes.
right? And then it was just started to become the distraught feeling because it was recurring.
It was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways, of course, that you can look at this.
Of
And
course.
I feel that visitation visitation dreams are a special category, let's say. But one way you could look at that dream is that there's an opportunity to connect with your mother, that she's not completely gone. And there's all this catching up to do. Yes, there is. And there's a possibility for that. And you could look at it as an invitation for that versus like a loss scenario, because you're realizing in the dream, oh, she's been here all along. Well, she has. And that's really what that where that spiritual awareness comes in, because it destabilizes the 3D reality of this is alive and this is past and this is reality and this is not. And, we need to move on and we have to separate and all that kind of stuff. Because when you're looking at your existence from a spiritual realm, you realize that just because we can't see things doesn't mean they're not there. And we have lots of extra senses where we're sensing things, whether we acknowledge them or tune into them or not. And so we all know in quantum physics and everything else that there's vibration and there's frequency and there's radio waves and there's Wi-Fi waves, and that's all around us, and everybody's fine
and we don't
with
see
that.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
But when we start talking about other existences, oh no, that can't be here. That can't be around us. Well, that's really up for debate, isn't it? So when you start to, I don't even want to say believe, but just open yourselves up to that possibility, then you realize that people possibly aren't gone. They're just different. It's just
different.
It's just different. And that there is catching up to do. And that possibly they know anyway, right? But the she's here all along realization,
Yeah. I was like, oh,
that's the
mom,
message.
mom, I got so much to tell you. And you know what hit me too just now as I sort of working this out. I'm not that I'm trying to get a therapy session here, but it's kind of coming to closure. So I'm sitting here thinking, why haven't I had that dream in a long time? I mean, a long time. I had it for a long time, and then I haven't had it for a long time. And so I'm like, when did that hit? So it's been about 13 years. I was going through some really deep healing, and I was in a lot of pain. And I just felt it was important for me to go out to where my parents are both buried. And I hadn't been there. I hadn't been there since my dad died. I'm not a grave visitor. And I grabbed a pad of paper and I grabbed a pen, didn't know what I was going to do, but I drove out there and I sat there at their grave and I just wrote. And a lot of what I wrote was updating my mom on what's happened in my life, literally, and my dad since I had lost him, and coming to a lot of realizations about, for my dad, like realizing at 16, I lost my mom. He lost the love of his life. He became a single mom or single parent, and so a lot just, and thanking my dad, but so much of it was catching my mom up on what I've been doing. She has a grandson, I'm married, like it was, so maybe I did catch up with her.
Yes. Yes, because when we have recurring dreams, it's because we're not addressing the message. And when we shift something in our life and we do address the message, then the recurring dream usually stops.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I was really glad when those dreams stopped, because the more they were happening, the more distressing and the more angry I would get at my dad. Like, how dare you keep her from me? Like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You know, and I guess in my head too, because when she was sick, I was helping to take care of her. I was physically helping to take care of her. And so I guess my thought is, I was doing just fine taking care of her. Why did you take her away from me? Why didn't you just leave her here so we could take care of her and I could have this time with her and I wouldn't miss all this time with her?
Mm-hmm. And the other way you can look at dreams, just for people that want to apply this method themselves, is a lot of times I look at people as symbolic too. So if it's not the person that's passed on, what are the personality traits of the person that's present in the dream? And or what is your interpersonal relationship with that person? So if there's a friend from college that's showing up in your dream, if you were to describe that person in three adjectives, not the way they look, but their personality, their mindset, their worldview, their proclivities, what would it be? And sometimes their presence in the dream is to point out those aspects of yourself, either that you're acting that way or that you need to act that way.
Interesting.
So the whole role of him in the dream, and that his action is keeping her from you, has a layer of meaning to it as well.
Yeah. I mean, he flat out lied to me when I asked him if she was dying.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I noticed that I was coming home from school. She was home from work. She was laying on the couch more. She was going to more doctor visits. And so I confronted him. And he looked me in the eye with tears in his eyes. And I said, is she going to be okay? And he said, I don't know. And he knew. He knew. Yeah. And it got confirmed actually right after he passed away. I was with family friends and they had said that, your parents they couldn't face telling you.
Yeah.
Which is selfish. I'm sorry. It's so selfish, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's probably explains my anger with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you like to leave with our listeners?
Well, one of the things you can do to start practicing this right away is that you can sign up for my newsletter and receive a free dream mirror journal template. And it's basically just a one pager, but it has the boxes for the different steps and the different things that you can start to realize you want to pay attention to, want to record. And so that's a first step.
That's
you can
awesome.
do.
I'm going to get that.
Yes. And then you can also contact me for a free discovery call. And then I'm also available to be booked for sessions, as well as my Women's Dream Empowerment program, which really has that full customization of the dream integration and the sound healing and just all of that transformation that you really would experience in that.
Oh, I think this is a great tool to add to the toolbox. I honestly never would even think of that. I knew dreams were important. And I knew there's a lot of significance to our dreams. I've never delved into it. I actually avoided them.
Right. And a lot of people do. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can people contact you? And we're going to have all the links and everything for people to be able to reach out to you. But why don't you tell us how they can reach out to you if they want to coach?
Absolutely. So it's womensdreamanalysis.com. And I'm also on almost all the platforms except Facebook and Twitter. So I'm on, except Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, Alignable. And I'm also on Insight Timer. And so I hold free women's dream circles on there. And I have meditation tracks. And then I also have my podcast, Women's Dream Enlightenment. And that's on all podcast platforms. And women come on and tell their stories of struggle and triumph, spiritual awakening, as well as their dreams. And I interpret them live on the show. So have a listen.
Yes. Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been great. And seriously, I am going to get that journal because I'm fascinated. I love this. It's just another tool that we can use to help us heal and grow.
Yes. And eventually I will have an actual book journal that you can buy that will have lots of pages in it. Soon enough, I'm going to be releasing my debut fiction novel this fall.
Nice.
And it's a metaphysical mystery that is a story of a woman really discovering her own power and through her dreams. And so it's very much, a wonderful story that reflects really this journey. And so that book will be coming out first. And then I will also have a dream journal coming out soon. And you can follow me as an author on meganmary.com.
Well, let me tell you, when those books come out, when the journal comes out, let me know. I will add it to my website because, people can just go to my website and click on these things and buy them. And it makes it really easy. So they don't have to try to figure it out. So definitely let me know when those come out.
I will.
Thank you so much. This has been really good. And really, I'm sitting here kind of starry-eyed because it's got my mind going. It really has me thinking. I'm going to probably do more research.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Lisa. It was a wonderful conversation.